So this, I mean, it's cool stuff. It's neat, right? You hear this called main memory or main storage, internal storage, primary storage, or if it's a dinosaur like me, they'll call it core memory. The reason we call it core memory is in the early days, memory was a matrix of wires, and they had little steel donuts, literally the size of a ballpoint pinhead, arranged on a wire grid. And they would magnetize and demagnetize these little donuts. A bunch of Indonesian women ruin their eyesight under magnifying glasses, soldering these things on. So mainframe computers had 32K kilobytes of memory. It was very, very expensive. When they went to chips, all that went out the window, and the prices dropped like a stone, and are continuing to drop as geometry shrink. It's your primary storage area, directly controlled by the computer's processor. It's volatile, okay? That's an important concept because everybody within the sound of my voice has had something on a computer and the power glitched or something like that, and you've lost what you were doing. Because most types of memory forget when the power goes off, right? Only when you spend more money on your memory, when you get to static RAM, do you start actually having memory that remembers things. And that's more expensive. So how much of that do you need, right? Whole bunch of different kinds, and we can talk about it. But coming back from Micron, there's two more down here. The basic concept is, I can lay out some of the, this is dynamic RAM, static RAM. Here, AMRAM is mobile RAM. It's very low power. And then there are two more to put down here after I got back from my trip. The point being is that there are many, many kinds of memory, and it changes just about every year. So when you start looking at that stuff, look that stuff up. Because we only, let's see, my slides are out of order. We also have read-only memory, right? This is the part of the computer, hardwired in. These cannot be changed. This has our startup instructions on it, right? This basically says to the computer, hey, you're a computer. Wake up, do your job, right? All right, it's non-volatile. In fact, you can't change it. Now, there's a special kind of memory. It's called cache memory. These are some very, very fast SRAM chips. They are very close. We're talking about that speed distance, right? Very close to the CPU, right? And this is the stuff that's most commonly used by the computer. Instructions, pictures, if you're looking at a series of web pages, your most current web page is stored there, that sort of things. The larger your cache memory often can have serious improvements in computer performance, especially graphically related stuff. The downside is SRAM can be very expensive. So having a big cache may mean your computer runs faster, but most of us don't need it, right? It's directly connected outside the bus. It's not on the bus. So this stuff moves much, much faster. A big cache memory is how you can improve performance. Big cache memory can also cost lots of money. In fact, there's a memory hierarchy, right? The fastest memory is usually the most expensive. The fastest memory also, because it's expensive, you don't normally have very much in a computer, right? You start up here and you've got the registers in the CPU. Very, very fast, not much capacity, very expensive because it's literally on the processing chip. Then we have the cache memory, and we go to main memory, right? Main memory is different from cache. It'll be slower because you have to access the bus, but you can access a lot more of it. Then you get out to hard drive, secondary storage. Most of these require a mechanical device, right? A hard drive is a spinning platter. I used to say like a record player, but no one has those anymore. But it spins at a very, very high rate of speed, and there's a little arm that moves back and forth on that thing, and it picks the spot where your information is and picks it up. Those mechanicals are slow. Those mechanicals break, right? But they're cheap, right? A hard drive is cheaper than main memory. The hybrid, the solid state memory, is coming on in big droves for a couple of reasons. Number one is low power consumption. If you got to spin something up and keep it spinning, that takes a significant amount of energy. Whereas if you've got a modern memory chip, you don't use power unless you actually access it. So hard drives are being replaced slowly by solid state. The reason they're not completely replaced by it is cost, right? Having a rotating memory is cheaper. That being said, if you've got a laptop, fewer and fewer of them have the Winchester drive, that rotating media. Why? Power. Because the thing that people are complaining about most vociferously when they talk about laptops and mobile computing is battery life. This helps win you battery life. Okay? Bunch of different kinds of secondary storage. Most of it's non-volatile, permanent. You can archive it, and it's cheaper, right? Which is why we do it. We move lots of data off to secondary storage, and it can, some of it can be accessed, some of it can't, right? We have direct access stuff, right? Hard drives, solid state drives, that sort of thing, and we have sequential stuff, right? CD-ROMs, DVDs, all kinds of optical drives. And there's an embarrassing amount of tape out there in the world that people are still counting on. But these are sequential. And you guys understand how sequential stuff works, right? Think about a DVD. You're watching a movie. And you can start at the beginning. Or let's say you watch part of it and you want to watch part of it later, and you have to go to that scene selection. That's just an index of different places in it, because it's all recorded in one continuous loop around that drive. So the advantage with direct access with these, they're called random access drives, right? The rotating kind that spin real fast. They, you can pick up anywhere, all right? And they can run faster. Again, these are cheap, right? We have displays. Most modern computers integrate their video card into the motherboard, okay? I had to pull an old video card out of one of my old computers to take this picture, all right? We can have graphics cards, we can have sound cards, we can have all kinds of displays. But if you look at this is a graphics card. If you look at this particular portion, that's a processor. Graphics cards and sound cards are separate computers, all right? And you can spend as much money on this stuff as you want. Big-time gamers, people who do graphics design, will have separate and multiple graphics cards. If you are doing cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and things like that, they will have many of these, and they convert them over from running video applications to running Bitcoin mining, all right? And so this is a separate card. You can see it's got a processor. You can see that it's got 4 memory chips on it. It's a little computer in and of itself. Most modern computers, if you've got a laptop and you're doing normal stuff on it, you have between 5 and 6 computers in that box. We have sound cards, right? Who needs really good sound? I like it. I like my music. I tend to record guitar riffs and things like that. I don't need it, especially don't need it at work. And monitors, gosh, you can spend as much money as you want on a monitor, right? Wouldn't you love to have a monitor this big at home, right? Play games, watch TV, for only thousands of dollars you can have one, right? So let's talk just a little bit about the emerging technologies, things that are coming and what you can kind of expect, right? Costs are going to continue to fall, right? This market is still price-wise in free fall. The prices are always going to get better. As soon as you buy something, it's going to be obsolete, and the next generation is going to cost less. Capabilities are going to continue to improve, right? Things are going to run faster. There's going to be more memory. Visuals are going to be much, much better. And the new stuff, flat screens. Oh, and everyone goes, we got flat screens. You don't have the kind you can roll up, do you? And they're coming. They're going to be that thin and that flexible. Embedded processors. They're putting processors in everything. And part of it is this computer generation. You know, when I built my first computer, don't laugh, this is serious nerd stuff here. This was in 1975 and 76. My college roomie and I, he was an electrical engineer and I was a computer scientist, we built a computer. And I'm going to tell you about this startlingly fast, hugely powerful computer. We spent $3,000 of 1976 money on this thing. It had a 1 megahertz processor, like over $500 to buy that thing. That was very expensive. We had 32K of main memory. Everyone laughs at that until they realize that that was the extra large version. It came with 16. We bought an extra memory stick. Our long-term storage was on a Radio Shack cassette. Our video monitor was a garage sale TV. $3,000 for this. Oh, we had a printer too, 40 columns wide. $3,000 on it, all right? Putting that in modern terms, that computer, you know, we'll use minimum wage. Minimum wage was $1.65 in those days. It's $7 and change now. So you're looking at a factor of 5. So 15,000. How much computer could you buy for $15,000? Multiple computers, right? I mean, you one computer, you know, maybe a server at 15,000. I mean, just monstrous stuff, right? The world has changed. The reason I bring this up is these embedded processors are going out there. The processing chip that I had in that startlingly fast, high performance computer in those days cost over $500. Now it costs 19 cents because of the way they've shrunk the geometries down and they can put more of them on a wafer. 19 cents per, I mean, it did math, right? It was originally a processor for stoplights. So they're putting them in refrigerators, they're putting them in toasters, they're putting them in microwaves, they're putting them in your car. Any car made after 1990 probably has four computers in it. If you've got a modern, you know, like a new car, maybe 10, right? These processors are getting embedded in everything. And it's becoming the Internet of Things. These things are becoming net aware. My wife and I are involved in a long project to revitalize our kitchen. One of the things we looked at was a new refrigerator, which we bought. One of the options we could have gotten was a net aware refrigerator. It had a processor in it, had a screen that was literally, you know, 2 foot by 3 foot on the front of the computer. You could write on it with your hand. There was a little keyboard. Of course, that cost $3,600. The one we ended up buying was a third of that. But that's out there. And then there's nanotechnology. Our circuitry continues to shrink. That's why the cost is going down, right? Silicon wafer is about this big. The more chips you put on a single wafer, the cheaper it's going to be. So the geometries keep shrinking down. Well, at about 1/10 of a micron, you know, very, very small measurement, the aluminum that they use for most standard processors is not dense enough that you can use probabilistic methods to determine what's going to happen. It becomes quantum. Someone says, oh, that's the end. No, not really. The new process is copper. Copper is several times more dense. And they're overlaying the levels of silicon, where when I first started in the industry, 1 layer. Now, 64 layers. They're connected vertically. It's really amazing, really, really small. And this stuff is going to show up in places all over the world in interesting ways to do it. And someone always asks, well, why are they doing this? Well, part of this is supply will create its own demand. Remember I made that statement earlier on today that computers, the world has capacity for perhaps, or the United States had capacity for perhaps 5 computers outside the government. When people started figuring out what computers can do, and we had a communication network that could share our data, and the price came down cheap enough, people are going, yeah, I want this, okay? And we started figuring out things to do with it. Cable industry, all those people have been, completely changed because of this change. But now we need to come to the concept of trade-offs, right? You're in a situation where you have to decide who gets what kind of computer. What do they need, right? Who needs a very fast processor? The CEO of the company does not. He wants one, and he'll probably finagle his way into one. But what does he do that requires, large amounts of computing speed?